Welcome back to Simply Fujica, a place for budding and aspiring entrepreneurs. My name is Fujica and I serve this community as a business mentor, and ultimately I help people start their non-medical home care agencies. So if this is the first time that you've stopped by, I just want to thank you. I want to welcome you to the channel. And for those of you who continue to support week by week, I want to say thank you. For some of my new agency owners, no matter what the question is, no matter what we're talking about, it always comes back to 12-hour care versus 24-hour care. When should you use either? What are some implications of both? And so I figured, let me turn that into a video, and I'm actually going to deliver it to you as a two-part series. So first, we're going to define the 12-hour. We're going to spend some time talking about 12-hour care. We're going to spend a little bit more time talking about 24-hour care. And then in part two, I'm going to talk to you about some considerations for both. So if that's something that you're interested in, and I truly hope it is, then stay tuned. Why this topic? This topic comes up because a lot of our clients actually have needs that require to have a person stay either half the day with them or the actual full day with them. And so because we are their partners in care, we want to make sure the needs are met for that individual, for our client. And so this is why this is such an important topic. It's truly based on the need of the individual who's requiring the care. So with that being said, let's start the conversation with 12-hour care. So the purpose of 12-hour care is, this is typically based on a client who has a specific need for a certain part of the day. So maybe this is a person who requires care for the morning, and then conversely, that same person or a different person may want the end of their shift taken care of. So if you think of a person who requires 12-hour care at the beginning half of the day, typically that person has a family member or a trusted friend who is taking care of them in the evenings. And so with that being said, they only require care for 12 hours of the day. The second point that I want to talk about here is the flexibility of it. So of course, if you have the flexibility of this is a caregiver who can come in, do those 12 hours, and as a lot of us know, this allows the caregiver to then go home to be with their families, right? Or you can allow a second person to come in and relieve that caregiver after 4 hours, after 6 hours. So certainly you have a lot more wiggle room with a 12-hour shift in terms of servicing it. The third point I want to talk about here is cost. Of course, 12-hour care is going to be less expensive than a 24-hour care for both the client and for you as the owner. So cost is always going to be a consideration for both of you, and 12-hour care absolutely is going to be less expensive than 24-hour care. Another item that 12-hour care allows for is just the consistency of caregiver. So if that person is only coming in 8 hours, 12 hours, if that person's only coming in 6 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours, then that allows for that caretaker and for that client to build a relationship, because depending on what part of the shift that caregiver owns, there's no need to switch them out. There's no need, unless there's backup coverage needed. So that way, and that always is good for the agency. Anytime a caregiver can build that relationship and that client can have that sense of consistency, they get to know their caregivers. That caregiver and client develop a rhythm of care of how they do things, then that's going to bode well for your agency. Because again, that client is going to depend on that care and depend on the relationship that they're starting to build with the client. So let's jump over to 24-hour care. 24-hour care this is a client who needs and requires 24-hour care. So the first point here is this person is allowed continuous support. So this person is waking up, going to bed, and everything in between. They have a caregiver who is present to help them with their needs. So again, this allows for around the clock constant monitoring, constant interaction, for that client that needs this type of care. What I like about 24-hour care is it actually addresses complex needs. So this is not a person who typically, just needs companion care or they need assistance with their ADLs. This is a person most likely who has some type of disability that requires additional assistance. The third point that I want to talk about here is opposite of 12-hour care. For 24-hour care, that cost is going to be up there because, again, there's a lot, and we'll talk about this in part 2, there's a lot of considerations when it comes to not only employing somebody for 24 overnight care, but then, of course, the cost of that. So the client is picking up considerable costs because they have to pay your caregiver or caregivers, depending on how you set this up, to take care of them, but also you have to pay those caregivers for that additional time. So again, you really want to make sure you spend a lot of time in your cost structure. And I actually did a video on that some time ago. I'll make sure that it's linked above and it's provided in the video description below. These are the things you want to consider when you're putting together your pricing structure. One thing we want to talk about, another point that I want to say here is you got to look out for caregiver fatigue. Because especially if this person is the person that has signed up for that overnight care, or if they're working consecutive shifts, you really want to hone in onto those clues of, is your caregiver feeling fatigued? Is that caregiver on the cusp of burnout? So really you want to check in with that caregiver, you want to check in with that client, make sure both are still okay with this arrangement. And if you need to step in and that person is requiring maybe a mental health aid or they need some time, that you can tag another caregiver in to temporarily relieve the primary caregiver. The final point that I want to talk about with 24-hour care is the relief that your caregivers are giving the family. So this is something that I could speak to from experience. It is so nice to have someone that you can count on that has a great relationship with your loved one, a great relationship with the family. It makes that family and that person that's requiring the care feel so much better that they have consistent, reliable care. Again, they have developed a schedule, they have developed a rhythm when it comes to the care that's being provided. As a reminder, I am here to assist you. I have noticed an uptick in those of you who have started agencies and you're still trying to kind of kick them off. You're still trying to stabilize your operations and you just need a little bit more guidance. I absolutely do have a mentorship program that is available. It is a 6-week program and actually we go through the topics that you want to go through. And so I really do customize it per agency, per individual needs. So that has been great. So I invite you to visit my website, which is simplyfujica.com, to get more information about that service among other services that I offer. And then don't forget, I'm also on Instagram, which is also Simply Fujica. If you have enjoyed today's content, I would invite you to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and then hit that bell notification so that you're notified each and every time I drop a new video. That's all I have for you all today. Stay blessed. I am so excited to share that I have published my first book, Goodnight Boo. Goodnight Boo is not only a dream come true, but it's essentially a love letter to my first child. It's really talking about the joys of wanting to have a child and finally having that child. So I really do think this is something that all mothers can relate to. We certainly love our babies. We want the best for our babies, and this book celebrates that. So if you would like to support me and purchase a copy of the book, the link is in the description. As always, I want to thank you for your support.